If you're ready to finally let go, this video is for you. Have you ever found yourself replaying past mistakes or arguments in your mind? Or ever just been stuck in the loop of negative emotions that you just can't seem to break free from? Well, the interesting thing is that according to neuroscience, difficult emotions should only last about 90 seconds. So why do you end up feeling bad for hours, days, months, and even years? According to Dr. Jill Taylor, when you have an emotional reaction to something or someone in your life, there's a 90-second chemical process that happens in your body. After that, any remaining emotional response is just you choosing to stay in that emotional loop. The emotions life cycle is supposed to be over, but somehow you keep pressing that repeat button over and over again. But why? In simple terms, it's because of your unwillingness to fully embrace the pain. It turns out it's easier to stay in your head overthinking negative thoughts than fully experiencing the emotional experience in your body. Imagine you're grasping onto something so tightly for so long that your hand begins to cramp and even bleed. But instead of opening your head and just letting it go, you find yourself ruminating, questioning, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just let go? And in a world where many books or social media posts tell us to just let go, rarely they provide the practical steps needed to actually let go. So make sure you watch this video in its entirety, because today I'm going to talk about and teach you the step-by-step process to letting go. We'll explore why letting go is so important and how you can start practicing it today. Not tomorrow, not next week, no, we're done with that. Today. Hi, my name is Gabriel and welcome to my channel where we explore the wonders of the mind, the science of transformation, and how you can harness this knowledge to live your best life. Please don't forget to give this video a like if you're ready to let go, and if you're new, please click on the subscribe button below. That will help me so much. Let's begin. First thing first, before even talking about letting go, we need to understand our emotions. Because when we're faced with emotions, we typically handle them in three main ways. 1. Suppression and repression. 2. Expression. And 3. Escape. Let me break this down for you. Let's start with suppression and repression. Suppression is where we consciously push our feelings away, like when you're forced to smile even though you're very upset. While repression happens unconsciously, meaning you're not even aware of the fact that you're doing it. And this is actually the most common way people deal with difficult emotions, because from a young age, that's what we've been taught to do, to hide those emotions, to not let them show. Now, the most common ways people suppress their feelings is to either denial or projection. Denial is when you just deny their very existence and blocking them, literally refusing to accept reality, and I've done so much of that in my life. While projection is when you blame others for your feelings, and this is so funny because I see stuff like that happen all the time. Like, let's say you're feeling a little overwhelmed today, and while cooking dinner you accidentally burn yourself or overcook the food, but instead of recognizing your stress, you blame your partner for distracting you. You pretty much turn others into the bad guys because it's easier than facing your own emotions. And this leads to very serious problems not only in your personal life but on a larger social scale as well. Next, we got expression, which is when you act out on your emotions and lose complete control over yourself. Like when you're angry and yell at someone, or to even darker scenarios like when someone physically harms another person. And contrary to popular belief, just expressing a feeling doesn't free you from it. Becoming the emotion versus feeling the emotions are two very different things. And if it sounds confusing, don't worry, just stay with me as it will make sense later in the video. And yes, you might feel relieved for a bit when you start yelling at someone, but this will only result in greater anger the next time. And finally, there's escape. Hello, Netflix, drugs, alcohol, binge eating, just to name a few. This is all about avoiding your own feelings through distractions. And while these methods might provide you with a quick fix, you're actually just pushing your emotions aside temporarily. But the emotions are still there, waiting for you when you come back to reality, and you know that. Now, in all of these scenarios, you actually never, let's say, get rid of your emotions, which is why they always come back. They just haven't been fully dealt with or processed. When you suppress them, repress them, and escape them, they stay in your psyche. You don't process them and you don't discharge them from your system. And when you express them, you're reinforcing the emotions in your psyche. It's like you're feeding the fire instead of putting it out. So the key takeaway here is that none of these methods actually resolve the core emotional issue, which means that the emotions will return, often with increased intensity. And this is exactly why you can move on with your life, why you keep thinking negative thoughts, why you always feel certain ways for no apparent reason over and over again, why you're still stuck in the past, why it seems so hard to change. And this is not a way to live, imprisoned by your own feelings, unable to be truly free. And by the way, over the long term, these unprocessed emotions can also make your body sick, opening the door to all sorts of diseases. Now, recognizing this and becoming aware of how you typically handle your emotions is the first step. Okay, now that we've discussed and understood a little more about our emotions and how we deal with them, let's dive deeper into the concept of why you're here, the concept of letting go. So what does letting go actually mean? Negative emotions are something we all experience as part of being human. We all go through times of anger, sadness, fear, and resentment. That's okay. But what's not okay is that since we're not taught up to properly handle and process these emotions, and we're definitely not taught that in school for some reason, those emotions end up staying with us sometime for the rest of our lives. Imagine living life carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks everywhere you go. Each rock represents a past hurt, regret, or fear, for example. And letting go is like taking out these rocks, one by one, and feeling lighter and more free with each one you remove. Letting go means releasing your attachment to all the thoughts and emotions that cause you pain and suffering. It's not about forgetting or pretending and those emotions don't exist, but it's about acknowledging them, processing them, and then freeing yourself from their grip. In other words, letting go is freedom. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of your past, stopping the cycle of reliving bad experiences and finally moving on without the heavy weight of old grudges, disappointments, and pains. But why does it seem so hard to actually do it? Let me tell you, it's definitely not the easiest thing to do in the world, and one of the reasons for that is emotional attachment. Because we often tend to hold on to feelings when they're tied to significant events in our lives. And these attachments are formed through our interpretations and memories of these events. Our minds constantly create stories around those emotions to provide us with a sense of control over our experiences. However, this control is an illusion. For example, holding on to anger because someone betrayed you in the past might feel like a very good strategy to protect yourself from being hurt again in the future. But in reality, it just keeps you stuck. Then letting go can also be challenging because it requires you to confront and process emotions that you might have been avoiding for a very long time. Our brains are literally wired to hold on to negative experiences as a survival mechanism, and this is known as the brain's negativity bias. And finally, another reason why letting go can be difficult is because it requires us to be vulnerable, something not really cool to do nowadays. It requires honesty with ourselves about what we're feeling and why, which can bring up all kinds of feelings that you must be willing to face and feel. So now that we got a better idea of what letting go is and the challenges that can come with it, let's get into the step-by-step process to actually do it. Now, the letting go technique is actually simpler than you think. But while the steps to it are simple, they all require dedication, consistency, and practice to master. And in simple terms, before we begin with the step-by-step process, to let go, all you really need to do is to just feel all of your emotions in your body, simply letting them run their course. That's all. Without thinking about them or taking any action, you do that and just watch how they stop coming back. I want you to imagine your emotions as water in a pan for a moment. If your emotions are the water, if you boil it, all the water will eventually evaporate, right? And how you boil the water? By simply feeling the emotions. Because if you don't, eventually the water will become stagnant, and over time it will even become a prime breeding ground for harmful bacteria, aka mental health problems and diseases in your body. So let me share with you now the 3-step technique to letting go. Step 1. Identify the emotion. The first step in letting go is to just identify the emotion you've been experiencing. This might sound straightforward, but it requires a certain level of self-awareness and honesty. You can also start by identifying what you're attached to. This could be a person, an event in your life, a bad habit, or a belief. By doing that, you can begin to understand the emotional response it triggers. Because awareness is always the first step. If you don't know what you're holding on to, you can't release it. Is it anger, fear, sadness, guilt, or something else? And if you think it's a lot of them at the same time, just start with one. Let's let go of one thing at a time. And don't worry about getting it perfectly right, just do your best to identify what you've been experiencing and start with that. Also, if you need a little more help to identify and name your emotion, you can take a look at this chart and feel free to screenshot it if you want to come back to it later. Now, once you have it, we can begin the next step, the actual work. And remember, emotions are just messengers. At the end of the day, there's really not such thing as a positive or negative emotion. They're simply messengers that carry valuable information about what's going on inside of you. So be grateful for the fact that you're even aware of them. Most people live their life completely unaware, and awareness is a gift. And these emotions are telling you something very important. Step 2. Sit with the emotion. Now that you've identified your emotion, I want you to close your eyes, either lay down or sit comfortably somewhere with intention to finally release what you've been holding on and start feeling. Just start feeling the pain. Allow yourself to feel those feelings in your body. Don't think about them, just feel them. To let go means allowing yourself to experience the feeling without changing it. It's about observation, not reaction. Acknowledging without altering. So begin by noticing where it's located, how it feels, and if it changes when you focus on it. Let's say you've identified that you've been feeling anxious. All you need to do is to just sit quietly somewhere and just focus on where you feel the anxiety in your body. Is it a tightness in your chest or in your stomach? Just become aware of the sensations in your body and feel them. And simply observe them without trying to change them. Allow the anxiety to be there. Accept that it's there. Don't start labeling it as right or wrong. Don't start thinking about it. Thoughts are just rationalizations of the mind to try to explain the presence of feelings. So instead of getting caught up in the story behind the emotion, simply observe it. And your mind might try to push it away and fight it, but this is just the ego avoiding discomfort. Your mind doesn't like discomfort. It's not wired for it. So become aware of the resistance and stay with the feeling. And sitting with all of this discomfort might be hard, and it is hard. It's definitely not pleasant, but on the other side of that discomfort, there's always freedom and transformation. Emotions are like waves. They rise and they fall, and by sitting with them, you finally allow them to complete their natural cycle. The natural cycle they never had the chance to finish. Step 3. Decide to let go. As you experience and feel the emotion in your body, you may begin to notice how it naturally begins to lose its hold on you and how it diminishes its intensity over time. And that's the key. The more you feel, the more you release. And you can honestly just do that. But I also like to add a final step to the process, which is to make the conscious decision to let it go. Consciously deciding to let go adds a layer of mindfulness and intention to the process. And since you know by now that our minds like to create stories around our emotions, by making such a firm decision, you can begin to rewrite these stories. This helps in changing your perspective and reinforces the understanding that your emotions are transient. So what I like you to do is first acknowledge and thank the emotion for whatever purpose it served. Every emotion has a role, whether it's to protect, warn you, or teach you something. If you've been sitting with anxiety, for example, you might say to yourself, "Thank you for trying to protect me. I appreciate what you were trying to do for me, but I no longer need your help in this way anymore." Then you move on forgiveness. This could simply mean forgiving yourself for holding on to the emotion, or forgiving someone else if the emotion is tied to an external event or person. And forgiveness is not about forgetting or condoning the wrongs people have done to you, but about freeing yourself from the emotional burden. There's a very beautiful quote that says, "Forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace." And it's so true. Trust me, forgiveness is so powerful and it frees you so much. And then, just make that decision. It might be helpful to even say that out loud if you'd like, but just make that decision. And just say to yourself, "I release this emotion, it no longer serves me, and I'm ready to let it go." You could spend about 20 minutes to 1 hour a day on this process. It all depends. But consistency is key, so make sure you make it a regular practice and make sure you do so because it's a very simple one. And if you need additional guidance, I've also made a really powerful 10-minute guided meditation on my channel that can help you start with process, and you can simply click above to try it. Also, it's important to know that letting go is not a one-time event. It's okay if the emotion comes back. It just means that there's more to be released. Just be patient, be consistent, and you'll see that in no time, you will be free. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Your support means everything to me, and it's really what allows me to keep creating and sharing with you more content like this. I'd also love to hear your journey, and I reply to all comments, so let me know what emotions have you been struggling to let go of, and how's your journey been so far. And never forget, true freedom comes from within.